Hello and welcome back to Read Becca. So let's jump right into my reading from this past week because I am finally getting over my slump, I think. And so I read quite a bit, and in fact, I think everything I have to talk about is new stuff mostly that I had not started before or didn't have in progress for the most part. So yeah, I have quite a bit. And not all positive. So yeah, let's jump right into it with first the very good stuff. So I did finally, I've talked about this one multiple times, and last week I wasn't sure if I was going to get into it, so I didn't mention it, but did finally get to At Night All Blood is Black by David Diop. This is, I think, won the International Booker Award. It's a short little novella, really, but I enjoyed this so much, if you can say enjoyed. The premise of this is that two soldiers who are childhood friends are put in a position where one of them is fatally injured and is begging his friend to end his life. The friend here is Alpha Ndiaye, and Alpha is feeling that he is not taking his friend's life out of a sense of humanity, because he's living by the rules of humanity, really, the laws of humanity that he feels are appropriate. And he realizes only at the final moment, when it's too late, where his friend has been gasping for help, that had he done that and taken his friend's life, that would have been the truly humane thing. And so he realized his sense of human law, the human rule of law, is wrong, really. And that comes up quite a lot throughout this. People discussing the civility of war when we're talking about truly horrific things here. And throughout this, what happens is, after he loses that sense of humanity, he loses the natural order that he is supposed to be following, that everybody thinks he should be following. Once he loses that, he begins going out at night after they've called ceasefires and attacking enemy soldiers and cutting off their hands. So this does have a lot of really graphic content. It's not over the top for me, but dismemberment, obviously he's cutting off people's hands, and disemboweling are really constant topics throughout this. So if you can't handle that, I would say this is not a read for you. But the writing was just beautiful. So I want to read a section, and this does contain something that might be triggering if you don't like any sort of graphic content, so skip ahead a few seconds here. When they saw the human disaster I was carrying in my arms, they said I was courageous and strong. They said they would not have been able to do it, that they might have abandoned Madame Diop to the rats, that they wouldn't have dared to neatly gather his guts into the sacred vessel of his body. They said that they would not have carried him such a long distance beneath such a bright moon, in sight of, and with the knowledge of, the enemy. They said I deserved a medal, that I would be given the Croix de Guerre, that my family would be proud of me, that Mademba, looking down on me from the sky, would be proud of me. Even our General Mangin would be proud of me. And yet I was thinking that I did not care about the medal, though no one would ever know this. Like no one would ever know that Mademba had begged me 3 times to finish him, that I had remained deaf to his 3 supplications, that I had been inhuman by obeying duty's voice. But I was now free to listen no longer, to no longer obey the voices that command us not to be human when we must. So I really strongly recommend this one. And one other thing I did note in this, that we're in a very close perspective with the primary character, where we're very much inside his head as he's thinking through these things and what he's doing. It's not like he's plotting out the gruesome things he's going to do. It's more introspection. But he does kind of circle around the same things over and over again. And that reminded me a lot of like folklore from oral histories. So I don't know if that is an actual connection, because in that sort of folklore, you will have the same thing told over and over again as part of the tale, but tweaked slightly each time. And that's what it felt like to me, but it could just be that it was meaning to impart that kind of anxious, cyclic thinking that you get when you keep ruminating on the same thing. So loved that one. It was really great. The other one that I picked up newly here and read is the Marrow Thieves by Cherie Dimaline. And I picked this up because Dimaline has a new book out that has gotten really popular, and it just reminded me that I have wanted to pick this up for a really long time. So this is actually a YA dystopian novel, and I think I'm going to just read the synopsis because it kind of tells everything really well. In a world nearly destroyed by global warming, the indigenous people of North America are being hunted for their bone marrow, which carries the key to recovering something of the rest of the population has lost, the ability to dream. Frenchie and his companions struggling to survive don't yet know that one of them holds the secret to defeating the Marrow Thieves. So, the populace of the world have stopped dreaming, and so they are trying to steal all of the indigenous peoples and test their bone marrow effectively to try and get back the ability to dream. They think this is the secret because all the indigenous people still can. And I think this is a not so nuanced way of saying very, very clearly that it's talking about the way that people have in the past and currently stolen the dreams and futures of indigenous peoples. So I think that's pretty overt as well, very overt. This specifically, by the same terminology, brings back residential schools. So there are residential schools in this. That's effectively where they're being taken to be tested. So it's a narrative choice that the people that are perpetrating this, they're called recruiters, have looked to the past and things that have been done in the past to indigenous peoples and recreated that in this dystopian time. So this novel is pretty typical for a dystopian. There's a lot of wandering. These people are constantly on the run, and the main character, Frenchie, has kind of found, it's a found family. It's really a small group of people, and they are traveling north. They don't really know why, but they're constantly moving north. And of course, it being a dystopian, post-apocalyptic, they're constantly under threat, even from other indigenous people. They're always on guard and anxious about, whether they're safe or not. So you have that constant sense of urgency and threat throughout the whole thing. So of course, it being YA, it had a minor romance. It's not a major part of the story, but it felt really misplaced to include that, because we have people dying here, and you're flirting with a girl, and I just didn't like that element. Overall, I enjoyed it. It wasn't a new favorite, and it didn't really stand out from things I've read before, but I did really like the topic and the way that it tackled incorporating those elements and commenting on the treatment of indigenous people. So I did enjoy this one. So next, the ones I didn't like as much. So Frog Music by Emma Donoghue. I just really hated this. It had very little going for it. I wish I had not continued, honestly, but I'm glad to have finished it because it was on my physical TBR shelf. I've liked Donoghue's work previously with Room. I think what worked for me there is that it just had a very kind of detached protagonist, and this is the opposite. The protagonist here, Blanche, is a French woman who used to work with kind of a circus, and now has come to San Francisco with her boyfriend, and she's a burlesque dancer, but she is the epitome of annoying and high-strung for the entire book. She drove me crazy. And the one other character that she's very good friends with, Jenny, dies at the very beginning. And so that kind of put me off right off, because Jenny is really interesting. She is very poked at by everyone because she wears pants. And so she's a woman who kind of doesn't pay attention to anyone. She's very independent and does her own thing for sure. She doesn't fit society's mold at all. And she's very loud and brash. So she's theoretically gone at the beginning, right? Well, then I discovered this was told out of order. So it's told non-linearly. And so I kept reading thinking that was going somewhere. And in fact, that does not go anywhere. It doesn't improve on the story at all. So for me, the story being told in a non-linear way is a disservice to the story, because we are meant to see Jenny and Blanche being these extremely close friends very quickly. But the story keeps disrupting the growth of their friendship to jump backward and forward in time. So had it been told linearly, I think it may have actually drawn that relationship successfully. And instead it did not. It absolutely felt like was stilted, and they felt disconnected. I don't feel like they had any real conversations. The dialogue between them was really terrible. I don't have anything positive to say about their relationship. So as well, we have all these major topics that are meant to be getting covered in here. We have baby farms, we have this massive racial and ethnic conflict that's going on, we have a pandemic, we have elements of kind of gender roles that are coming into play, we have industrial schools, which are kind of the US equivalent of like asylums combined with residential schools. So all of that does occur in here, but none of it is handled with any level of nuance. And I think all of those topics could be, what you learn about them could be summed up in a sentence maybe, if that. So none of that felt like it was handled very well at all. So I just really did not like that. And on top of disliking the character, it just really didn't work for me. The writing as well felt so over the top. Every single time it would lean into the most dramatic possible option, even when it conflicted with itself. So at one moment, and this is kind of just a throwaway thing that happens, Blanche is carrying a load of clothes in her arms, and she goes on a whole thought train about how ridiculous it is that this boy is embarrassed at her carrying these clothes. And then immediately he reaches to take the clothes from her because she wants him to, and then she's embarrassed that he's taking the clothes. So it's like, so there is a whole inflammatory quality to the writing for me that just didn't work, where, you know, I've read several things recently that were extremely understated, and that was much more effective than this. It feels like this was written to be very emotionally manipulative. The one thing that I feel this did to some good effect was that it really got across how trapped women were in their circumstances, how little independence and autonomy they had. And I think that is a really major through line through the whole book. So I think if that is the point it was trying to get across, it did do that. So I did feel that it gave us zero sympathy, though, for those women and the hard choices they were having to make, the things that women did in order to survive through that being trapped in their role. And yeah, I just really disliked that. It felt like I needed to be on board with, in order for that narrative to work, I needed some sympathy, and it didn't have that at all. So that was a dud. Then we had an actual DNF, which happens really rarely. This is The Low, Low Woods, and this is written by Carmen Maria Machado, art by DaNi and Tamara Bonvillain. Yeah, this was a DNF. This is a horror comic, and I picked it up purely because of Carmen Maria Machado, and it didn't really work for me. So it felt very much like a prose writer who couldn't find the balance between telling everything in prose and letting the pictures tell the story. So the art was actually really, really good. I liked the art quite a bit. That's fine. I love the color palette of it. Really, really great bright colors, but it never found that balance, and it is kind of similar to things I've seen before, so it didn't feel like it was doing anything special. So this story is, there is this place that has kind of weird monstrous things happening in magic because of some mysterious company, and they had, I think, coal mines. So like I said, I didn't finish it, so I don't know where the story goes, but it kept jumping around and going over things that it had already said and wasting time, really. I don't feel like I was getting the progression I was wanting. The whole thing starts with these two girls, they seem to be a lesbian couple, waking up in a movie theater, and they just keep on saying something weird happened in the movie theater, something weird happened in the movie theater. And like, yeah, we never really progressed on. It was so repetitive, and I skimmed through all the way to the end, kind of, and it didn't feel like it changed. Kept jumping in time, so we were jumping back and forth between backstory and current story in a way that didn't work. I've read lots of comics and seen that balanced, and this did not feel balanced at all. So yeah, that was a DNF for me. So that is what I finished this week. I know everybody is looking forward to me talking about A Boy and His Dog at the End of the World. I am still progressing on that, and I'm almost finished, but not quite enough to talk about it this week. And then I also started and am nearly finished with another one, The Fifth Gender by GL Carriger, or GL Carriger. This is a sci-fi romance, so I'm about 2/3 of the way through, so I will talk about that one next week, I'm sure. So those two hopefully will be done next week, and I will be able to talk about those. I'm continuing on with my Best of World SF reading, so that is going along nearly halfway, I think. So I think that's everything that I read this week, and what I'm looking to continue for the coming week. So in terms of other bookish news this week, it was a big week for children's lit. The National Book Award shortlist was announced, which looked very exciting. I saw, not Elatsaway, Darcy Little Badger had another work that is on the list. Anna Marie McLemore is on the list. There were a couple of other authors that I knew of but hadn't read before. So really exciting list. I'm planning to work through who's on the list and actually look at the synopsis for all the books, because usually that is a great resource for me for finding new children's literature that I want to get into. So that is an exciting list, and I will link that down below. What else has gone on? So personally, really great week in gaming. I finished up Dragon Age Inquisition finally last weekend. It has been going on for, I think, I actually solicited some advice on starting Dragon Age from Bookish Die, who is a huge fan of the franchise, probably last November, and then I started it. So I started Inquisition as my first game, my first foray into the Dragon Age universe. I'd never done anything before. And then I got really, really into it, and then took a multi-month hiatus and was very close to the end, apparently, because I pretty much picked it up a couple weeks ago and got through it with very little time spent, because I've hardly been playing games. So yeah, really enjoyed it. I liked the little puzzle games that it had inside, versus like the larger quests, actually. That was really fun. And the cinematics, I felt like there were too many and too long, but they were really lovely still, even though it's, you know, several years old. So the other thing gaming wise was that Train Valley I have been obsessed with. And so I normally wouldn't usually pay out for a DLC, but I have gotten so many hours of play out of Train Valley, and they have a DLC for another set of levels. And so I spent the $2.99, I think it was, to get the extra set of levels, and have been really enjoying it. I unfortunately played through it, I think, a little too quickly. So I've been going back and replaying all of those levels. And the final level of each one is basically just a free-for-all, kind of, where the only goal is to get the maximum amount of profit from the trains that you can. And so I've been replaying and replaying that to try and get higher and higher amounts, and I'm kind of stuck now. I'm trying to get over $400,000, which doesn't mean anything to you, but I just really enjoy that. So that's what I've been doing after work. Like right as soon as I finish work, I've been taking the dog out and then just shutting my brain off a little bit to do that, because it's very repetitive and kind of focused, and I can turn on an audiobook in the background and do that. So yeah, I am enjoying that a lot. So that's been it in gaming. In TV watching, I actually watched all of The Chair. I don't think I talked about starting it before. I can't remember. I'm having massive, like, coming back from brain mush where I am feeling intense deja vu all of the time. So if I am repeating myself, I apologize, but I cannot tell what I've talked about before. So anyway, The Chair, which I love Sandra Oh, so she's in there. One of the Duplass brothers. It's got a really, really great cast, just in general. But it's set at a university faculty in a literature department, and it's very much a satire of that. Everybody's pretty unlikable, and it really digs into the problems of academia, especially for right now. It does kind of get into like social justice movement with the students, but it kind of demonizes everybody, like every aspect of the academia experience. It picks apart problems with it, and I found that interesting, that satire of academia. The cat food is going off, between just everybody being very unlikable, and the way that it portrayed things. It felt like it was really trivializing everything, like all of the very real, legitimate problems that happen. Like there is a smart critique there, but I think it went at it maybe the wrong way. So I did like the performances, though. I think it was really well worth watching for the performances, for sure. I love Sandra Oh so much. I wish she would go back to playing her character from Grey's Anatomy more, where she had confidence, because all of her characters since have that same kind of balance of being a very competent person. Like, she is always a super intelligent character, but then it's undercut because she is so lacking in confidence in herself. Same deal with Killing Eve. I love her in Killing Eve, but she is that same character where, you know, she is extremely competent. Like, she has this very specialist role, but she's really emotional about things, and doesn't think that way of herself, and doesn't really see herself as the powerful person that she is. And I wish she would get back into that ultra hyper confident character. So that one I really liked. What else? I watched That Thing You Do on YouTube actually as well. So I really love that movie, and I saw it was available for free with ads on YouTube, so I watched that. Like, you get those like sidebar ads that occasionally show you a movie, and I saw it and I immediately watched it. So yeah, I really enjoy that movie. I enjoy, again, that's a good performances one. Like, all of the actors are really, really on point throughout. So love Steve Zahn. Yeah, so that is, I think, what I watched this week. So I think in cat news, we had a really, really big past couple of days with Gumbo, my semi-feral cat. She let me one night earlier this week just play with her. We played for a while, both swatting the little ball on the track for a while. She was walking back and forth and not like acting anxious at all. She was walking up and like headbutting me and trying to get face rubs. So it was blew me away. And then this morning, she and Rue were laying in enjoying the sun, and so I walked up and started petting Rue. Usually, like, if you don't directly engage or approach a cat who's nervous about you, that's better off. So I started petting Rue beside her, and he started purring, and then she doesn't purr. Usually she does this kind of breathy thing, but she started doing the breathy thing, and flopped over and let me start petting her, and I was just like blown away. So I didn't get any footage of either of those, but I did go back a little later this morning with my camera on, and it went pretty similarly, where she just let me pretty much walk right up and start petting her and was super calm and chill about it. So that was amazing. Yeah, it's really blown me away how much progress she's still making, and I think she's actually going to be like normal house cat level in a few months. So really exciting. It's been a long time coming. Then weather-wise, I've been able to get outside a little bit in the evenings. I think I mentioned last week that we've had pretty hot weather. It's still 90s. The highs are low 90s, but the overnight it's cooling down quite a bit. So in the mornings, I've been able to get out with Cinnamon, my dog, quite a bit. I have been able to go for walks on my own in the evenings because it's chilled out quite a bit. But we are in for continued heat. It looks like we're gonna stay probably around 80 into October. We're gonna get a temperature drop here down to that level. It seems mid this coming week. So I'm looking forward to that. That will be a lot more livable. My poor dog does not do well because he's a Pomeranian, and so he doesn't do great with it being 90. 80 I think is a lot more manageable, but it's going to cool down a ton overnight as well, so that's going to help a lot. And I think we're going to get to the point where I can open my windows at night, and the cats will love that. So that's great. It's been very weird in terms of that weather. So my neighborhood has a pool, and usually, I think up until maybe 5 years ago, Labor Day was always the pool closed, and that's like a pretty standard normal thing. But they have extended it the past 5 years, I think, and it used to be like 1 week, then it's been 2 weeks a couple of times, and I just heard they are extending it into the coming week, and it's looking like if it's continuing to be 80, they will continue keeping it open. So yeah, it's looking like this is going to be the longest we've had the pool remaining open ever, which is just wild. I drove by this morning and there were just a ton of people up there still. So yeah, very weird in the weather department. But looking forward to it cooling off a little bit. I would love to be able to sit outside and read and have some fall-y weather. So I think that is it for me for this week. My wrap up. I am finally getting out of my slump, so that is really exciting. I know a lot of people experienced slumps this past month, and so I'm hoping everybody else is starting to work through that kind of mental block that they were having. So yeah, thank you guys all so much for watching. Having a very good lazy morning. Come be. Oh my gosh, what a good girl. Gumbo, you're so good. You're doing so good. Oh, baby.